Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon a Timeline, and this is my second in a series about creatures that are being turned into zombies. So, last episode, I talked about various insects that were being controlled by various pests and being forced into different and abnormal behavior, and then often also killed. Now, I did talk about the cordyceps fungus that takes over ants and causes them to climb to high regions and clamp onto leaves, and then the fungus sprouts out of them, killing them and raining the spores down onto new victims. Well, since then, I've noticed that there are actually hundreds of cordyceps virus now that infect all kinds of different creatures. So it's not just ants anymore. There are moths and spiders and crickets and caterpillars and all kinds of weird creatures now also get infected by this various strains of this cordyceps fungus. And you can see all these images here. And these are the fruiting bodies of the fungus that come out. Here's a spider after the creature has died. So these are spreading very rapidly. Just maybe a few years ago, it was only one species of ant that would catch this cordyceps virus. Here's some caterpillars here that were killed, spiders. So this thing is just taking over beetles here. Many examples and all kinds of weird fruiting bodies that come out of them after they've died. Okay, so this episode, we're going to talk about some of the larger animals, but first I wanted to go over plants really quick. Apparently, plants also can be infected by something that takes them over and turns them into something like zombies. Sounds like a bizarre video game mashup, but farmers have reported zombie plants since the early 1600s. Plants that took on sickly yellow look and grew strange leaf-like structures or bushy growths instead of flowering and reproducing. Now, I've never heard of this, but apparently it's been a thing since the 60s now. So basically, this infection takes over the plants, and they no longer reproduce, and their flowers just turn into more leaves. Now, I have discussed seeing some images like that of plants that had their flowers change back into leaves. So apparently this infection causes that. And you can see here, supposedly, I guess these are infected by it. So the virus takes over the plant, and it hijacks the plant's reproductive systems, and it also causes the plant to be more attractive to insects, because what this phytoplasma wants to do is get into insects, which is part of its life cycle. So it likes to get into the digestive system of insects like leafhoppers that spread the bacteria to new plant hosts. So that's an interesting one. So apparently these plants will then grow weird, bushy, erratic growth, and they'll be kind of mutants where there'll be just weird growth everywhere, not their normal growth pattern. Okay, but we can also see a similar thing in larger creatures, this time a frog. Parasite creating deformed frogs in the western USA. So I don't know if you remember, but for years now they've been saying that there's been more deformed frogs, and this is probably the result of pollution and toxins in the environment. But now they're saying that it's probably this deformity is caused by a parasitic infection. So here you see a frog with multiple legs. So this parasite infects at in the budding embryo stage and causes the creature to grow excessive numbers of legs and other things. So amphibians with sick and twisted deformities continue to be widespread in western United States, new research says. And this one is called by a flatworm parasite called Ribieroi ondatri, probably pronounced that wrong. So you'll notice that there are a variety of parasites now causing these infections and deformations. So we've seen fungus, we've seen viruses, now we've got flatworms, all kinds of parasites now are taking over various other creatures and somewhat mind controlling them. So in this case, though, they're not mind controlling. In this case, it's causing deformations. Now, supposedly, these deformed animals are more likely to be eaten by predators, and the flatworm needs to get into other species as part of its life cycle. So you can see a strong pattern here with the life cycle issue. They need to get into other creatures, so they mind control the ones they're in now. The scientists found that parasite infections were still pervasive in amphibians at the study sites. Okay, so anyways, yes, deformed frogs caused by flatworms. All right, now let's get into some of the larger animals. You probably have seen some things on the news lately about various animals acting strangely. One of the most common ones has been these zombie raccoons, and supposedly they're infected with distemper, which is a virus that was typically associated with dogs. Now, I just don't really remember so many diseases so easily crossing the species borders. Originally, almost every disease was isolated to either one or maybe a few other species, but it seems like that's been loosening a lot. And now they're saying that zombie raccoons are going around just acting really strange, and distemper causes coughing, tremors, seizures, and leads raccoons to lose their fear of humans. Anyway, so yes, zombie raccoons has been a big thing lately due to distemper. Then we have the zombie-like foxes. I've been hearing a lot about those. Supposedly they're infected with rabies. Now, rabies used to be a pretty rare thing, and then they were saying that there was rabies in some bats. But it seems like now a lot of things have rabies, and so this one is about a fox in Russia that was acting really strangely, trying to bite the door here, wouldn't go away. This is pretty gruesome. There's been a lot of reports of foxes losing their fear of humans and wandering around weirdly like zombies. Okay, so another one has been these zombie-like coyotes, supposedly infected with mange. And I have definitely seen dogs that had mange, but I haven't seen them wandering around like zombies, so I don't know if this is an exaggeration or what. Infected animals will often appear mangy, which looks just like it sounds. They suffer from hair loss, develop secondary infections, and eventually looking like some sort of zombie dog. And supposedly, they do sometimes act strangely as well. They will be more listless and be less fearful of humans at times. So I don't know how much this one really is a zombie one. They definitely look like it, and there have been a lot of reports of it in the last 5 years. Some of you may have seen that there were hairless ones that people were saying were chupacabras. But lately what I'm seeing is these crusty ones. Now, supposedly it's the same problem each time, mange, but the look of how the mange is being shown now is has changed from what I've seen. Okay, so the last one for this episode is the zombie deer disease. So apparently these deer catch this thing called chronic wasting disease, and this is highly related supposedly to mad cow disease in that it is spread by a prion infection. And a prion is a type of protein that I never really understood it exactly, but supposedly it gets into the animal, and because it is folded weird in its molecular shape, it somehow influences surrounding proteins of a like type to also fold weird. And then these proteins don't operate properly in the animal and build up for some reason in the brain and cause the animals to slowly degenerate and act like zombies. So supposedly weight loss, lack of coordination, drooling, listlessness, or blank facial expression, and a lack of fear of people. It seems like that's a big theme lately with the animals is losing fear of people. Even in animals that are not supposed to be sick, I've seen that. Rabbits come right up to my door now, just hiding under the car. I can get within 4 or 5 feet of a wild rabbit now. Never used to happen like that. Okay, so what's interesting about this prion disease, not only is it similar to the mad cow disease. Now, when I first heard of these prion diseases, the only one that I knew of was Kuru, which supposedly existed in humans in a tribe in Africa, and it was spread because people were cannibalizing the dead. So that was the first I'd ever heard of it. Then shortly afterwards, there was mad cow disease. And so that one they were saying, oh, it's related to Kuru. And there was much stink about that. I'm sure most of you have remembered it. Then somewhere in there, they suddenly said that deer also get a form of it, which I had never heard of. It was still quite some time ago, but I had studied mad cow quite extensively, and there was never a peep about these deer. But in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of slowly advancing talk about the deer and the chronic wasting disease. Okay, so the big question here is people are talking about whether if you eat these deer, will you also get the chronic wasting disease? Now, some researchers suggest that no, you won't. It won't cross the species border. But as I've mentioned, the species border is not as strong as it once was, in my opinion, and things do cross a lot more. Some places are saying that this is a highly rapidly mutating disease and that it may cross the species border at any time, that macaque monkeys can still catch this deer wasting disease. It's something I don't really understand that well. I mean, it's just one folded prion protein. So if that one folded protein is either going to fold in a certain way or it's not, I don't understand how it will mutate. What, it folds in some other new way, and then that kind of folding does influence other proteins now that it didn't. It's a little confusing to me why. To me, it seems like it either should or shouldn't influence surrounding proteins, and that it should influence all proteins that it is similar to, whether they be in any kind of animal, human, deer, or macaque. So, I don't know. I think this story is just kind of on the cusp now, and we might hear more about that. For now, you might want to second guess how much wild deer meat you eat and be very careful about it just in case. But anyways, for now, there are quite a number of creatures that may infect humans and cause zombie-like diseases. And there are so many that I am going to cover that one in the next episode. This is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline.